World Artorias lies broken, hollow-eyed. This was his no false shield arm torn, where he wrenched it free to stop the abyss from swallowing Sif. His armor cracks, shadows coiling around the wolf at his side. The greatsword trembles not to strike, but to end. This was no fall. He shattered his own soul, trading his name to sever the abyss hold. You see the shell. Miss stopped the hold act. Ulf at his the side, burning his shell body to save the world from what had become. The stone chamber reeks of ozone and burnt hair. Artorias' quill scratches the abyssal covenant, ink pooling like black blood. His hand shakes not from fear, but the weight of a throne's silent gaze. The document's clauses are a blade. He vows to shatter his own soul, a chain to drag the abyss core into the sea. A torch sputters, shadows writhe as if the chamber itself resists. His final breath fogs the page. Asterisk, let them think me broken, asterisk, he whispers. Asterisk, let them see only the hollow asterisk. Dawn finds the covenant buried beneath ash and bone. It's a secret the world is too afraid to read. The abyss did not claim him. He claimed its heart and died, not as a traitor to light, but to the lie that made him one. What is written in shadow cannot be undone. The road to Ulasil reeked of iron and rot. Artorias' armor groaned with each step, the cold biting through his mail as if the land rejected his presence. The sky had no starsonly a void that pulsed like a wound. He did not fear, he knew asterisk. The abyss was not a beast to slay, but a tide to drown in, and he would be its first anchor. In the depths, the air thickened. It tasted of copper and old blood, a fever that clung to his skin. Shadows writhed in his vision, whispering not in words but in hunger. They called him asterisk brother asterisk. They called him asterisk home asterisk. His blade, once bright, dimmed to gray. Yet he pressed on, through halls where walls wept ichor, where the ground bubbled like a cauldron's breath. Then came the voice, not a whisper but a asterisk roar, asterisk the abyss itself, a chorus of 1,000 souls devoured. It spoke of power, of unity, of surrender's beauty. Artorias' hands shook. Not from fear, from the weight of choice. He saw it then, the truth in the void's offer. To join was to become a god, to resist was to become a ghost. He laughed, a sound raw as a blade dragged across bone. If this flesh was a prison, let it be the last key. He drove his sword into his own chest, not to kill, but to asterisk sever asterisk. The fire that consumed him was not death, it was a chain snapped. The abyss howled, its tide recoiling as his body became ash, then stone, then a scar upon the void. They say the abyss took him. They are wrong. Artorias asterisk betrayed asterisk it. His final act was not a fall, but a theft. He stole back the will of a world that had forgotten how to dream. The fire still smolders in Ulasil's soil. Wait. Listen, it does not whisper. It asterisk remembers asterisk. The road to Ulasil reeked of iron and rot. Artorias' armor groaned with each step, the cold biting through his mail as if the land itself rejected his presence. The sky above had no starsonly a void that pulsed like a wound. He did not fear, he asterisk knew asterisk. The abyss was not a beast to slay, but a tide to drown in, and he would be its first anchor. In the depths, the air thickened. It tasted of copper and old blood, a fever that clung to his skin. Shadows writhed in the corners of his vision, whispering not in words but in hunger. They called him asterisk brother asterisk. They called him asterisk home asterisk. His blade, once bright, dimmed to a sickly gray. Yet he pressed on, through halls where the walls wept ichor, where the ground bubbled like a cauldron's breath. Then came the voice. Not a whisper but a asterisk roar, asterisk the abyss itself, a chorus of 1,000 souls devoured. It spoke of power, of unity, of the beauty of surrender. Artorias' hands shook, not from fear. From the weight of choice, he saw it then, the truth woven in the void's offer. To join was to become a god, to resist was to become a ghost. He laughed. A sound raw as a blade dragged across bone. If this flesh was a prison, let it be the last key. He drove his sword into his own chest, not to kill, but to asterisk sever asterisk. The fire that consumed him was not death, it was a chain snapped. The abyss howled, its tide recoiling as the knight's body became ash, then stone, then a scar upon the void. They say the abyss took him. They are wrong. Artorias asterisk betrayed asterisk it. His final act was not a fall but a theft. He stole back the will of a world that had forgotten how to dream. The fire still smolders in the soil of Ulasil. Wait, listen, it does not whisper. It asterisk remembers asterisk. The fire still smolders in the soil of Ulasil. It smells of charred bone and iron. The kiln's heat warps the air where Gwyn stands, his armor slick with sweat. He grips the first flame's shard. A single drop of his blood falls, hissing into vapor. The rune of death hangs cold around Ranni's neck, its surface glinting like a frozen tear. She breathes in the stench of rot flesh and time unraveling, her fingers close over the sigil. The abyssal throne's chamber is a void of swallowed sound. Her armor clangs as he fingers close over the sigil moves. Each throne step a chamber is a hammer void of blow against the silence. The Covenant's inked words pulse beneath his fingers. Asterisk sever the root, let the world forget me. Asterisk he tastes blood, sharp and coppery, not from wounds. From biting his tongue to hold back a scream as the abyss weight crushes his ribs. The throne looms obsidian and starlight, a thing that breathes. Artorias' blade, once a knight's, now a jagged shard of stolen fire, scrapes the dais. The abyss thrashes, its whispers coil around his mind. Asterisk, you are mine. You will be forever. Asterisk, he thinks of his sister's laughter, the way she tucked her head beneath his chin before the wars. A memory brighter than the flame, purer than the eclipse. He drives the shard into the throne's heart. The chamber shudders, a sound like a mountain collapsing, a scream that cracks the sky. The rune of death flares, Ranni's vision bleeds black. Gwyn's hand ignites the kiln's pyre. Artorias falls not to the abyss but through Ida Star, plunging into a void. His armor fractures, the Covenant's ink bleeds into the darkness. The world forgets him, but the flame remembers. The fire in Ulasil hisses, a voice without words, a vow, a scar. The abyss lives, but its grip weakens, one thread unraveled. One name erased, one night's end that became a beginning. But to understand what came next, you must understand what he gave up. The cold of Ulasil's halls still hums in his bones, the four kings' whispers etched in blood beneath his nails. He walked not as a hero, but as a thread pulled from the abyss Lumhi's sword's last light, not a blaze, but a noose around its throat. In the silence between heartbeats, he chose the world's sleep over his own. The abyss devoured him, yes, but it swallowed a trap. The steel of his shield arm cooled to ghostly white, its edge seared with the stench of Ulasil's putrescent breath. He had traded bone for her life, Sif's name a prayer in his shattered teeth. The abyss did no teat feasted, 1,000 ravenous throats gnawing at his sinews. The four kings' statues wept blackened ichor as their chains splintered, their faces contorted in the afterbirth of their own corruption. Gwyn's flame, once his beacon, now flickered in the void's maw like a dying star. Artorias stumbled through the ruins of the Chalice dungeons, his shadow fracturing into 1,000 screaming mouths. The air reeked of iron and rot, every step left trails of viscous dark matter where his boots should have touched stone. Asterisk, this is not an end. Asterisk, he thought, clutching the hilt of his sword as it bled light. Asterisk, this is a wound the abyss will never stop bleeding. Asterisk. The final strike was not a clash of steel, but a rupture of will. His body split like a cocoon, the light within him Gwyn's stolen fire, Sif's borrowed breath surging outward in a crown of thorns. The abyss howled, its form unraveling, yet it persisted. It always persisted, but in its hunger it had swallowed a leash, not a corpse. Names echoed in the void, Ulasil, the king's, Gwyn, and his own. A chorus of debts paid in kind. The world did not wake. It slept through the war, dreaming of a knight who became both dagger and grave. Artorias did not bend. As empires crumbled to dust, the abyss whispered promises of oblivion. Yet his blade carved a different script, flesh splitting, bones splintering, a king's pride forging a new kind of armor. What is a hero but a weapon with a heartbeat? The deeper he fell, the brighter his defiance burned. The abyss devours, but Artorias offered himself as kindling. His blood, once gold, now seeped like ink across the land, staining the soil with rebellion. Did the darkness recoil? No. It laughed as all tyrants do when faced with a martyr's resolve. His armor, shattered, became a second skin of shadows. His sword, broken, became a conduit for the light that Gwyn's flame had long since snuffed out. The hollowing was not a loss, it was a transfiguration, each shattered rib a testament. Each corrupted step a rebellion. The abyss walked in him, yet he walked faster. Where it sought to unmake, he sought to sever. The hunter became the hunted, yet his eyes gleamed with the cold fire of a man who knows the cost of victory. The world, still dreaming, would never see the true shape of its savior, a knight who turned his back on infinity, who wore the mark of the abyss like a badge of war. His final act was no suicide, it was a severance, a dagger driven through the throat of forever. The abyss took his body, his will it could not hold. Civilizations had bled into the void, their names erased. Artorias carved his name into the void's ribs, a hollow shell, yes, but also a tomb. The force that consumed empires met its match in a man who became both grave and altar. His death was not an end, it was a fracture in the tide. The abyss would not remember this betrayal, the world would not wake, but in the spaces between dreams, the night's shadow walks a wound the darkness cannot heal. The abyssal covenant glows faintly in the marrow of his remains, a sickly greenish hue that clings like rot to the iron of his shattered helm. Here in the sealed tomb where Artorias' armor calcifies with time's neglect, the air hums with the static of unspoken oaths. The chosen undead did not slay him, no. The knight's blade met its master's in a clash that shook the dream's foundations, but it was Artorias who drove the final thrust downward, severing his own tether to the void's hunger. The abyss screamed as its vessel betrayed it, a sound like shattering glass and screaming winds that still echoes in the blood of every soul who treads the undead's path. Ulasil's ash drifts in the chamber, a silent snowfall over the four kings' broken thrones, their faces melted into expressions of forgotten despair. Artorias' sacrifice did not defeat the abyss. It delayed its hunger. The covenant now pulses like a wound, a countdown etched in bone and shadow. Somewhere beyond the dream's veil, the wolf time waits. And in the quiet between heartbeats, the knight's ghost asks himself, was this defiance or merely another kind of surrender? The mirror shows a knight in his shadow. Artorias, once Gwyn's blade, the Abysswalker, now Manu's pawn. Both swore oaths to dying stars. Both were swallowed by the dark they sought to banish, yet one knelt, the other the leash. Gwyn's fall was a surrender. He let the first flame die, clutched its embers to his chest like a lover's corpse. Artorias' fall was a weapon. The abyss gnawed at his flesh, but he drove his sword through its throat, not to slay, to shatter the yoke. Manu's dark was not a void, it was a mirror. A hunger forged from the same fire that made gods. Artorias saw it, the abyss was no foreign god. It was the price of Gwyn's war, the waste of holy wars, the rot beneath every crown. To break the cycle, he had to become the thing he hunted, suicide as rebellion. The final act of a knight who refused to trade one master for another. Gwyn's grace was a slow drowning. Artorias' grace was a spear through the water. What does the mirror show now? A man who chose to die rather than let the dark claim its due. A king who let the world freeze so his ghost might reign. Both burned, one to illuminate, the other to be remembered. The abyss does not forgive betrayals, it remembers. And in the cold beyond the wolf time, Artorias' name is a scar that bleeds light. The cold beyond wolf time holds his blade. Artorias' greatsword, still sheathed in the abyss shadow, waits. Its edge hums with the memory of a knight who broke his oath not to chains, but to freedom. The wolf ring, lost in Anorlando's snows, whispers its truth. Asterisk, blessed by the wolf's bite, the beast becomes the shield. Asterisk, Sif, the gray wolf who once walked beside him, did not flee when the abyss roared. She stayed, her howl now echoes in the sword's hilt, a pact sealed in blood and starlight. He did not fall. He fractured the abyss will, shattering its claim on the soul it hollowed. The world above breathes because Artorias chose to drown in his own light rather than let it be snuffed. His descent was no surrender, it was a theft and arsonist's flame cast into the abyss vaults, the sword's hilt gnarled with wolf bone. The abyss did not claim him, he claimed its fire and became its heir. What legacy burns in that wolf bone hilt, a sword's fury or a world's last hope? The chosen undead walks now where Artorias stumbled, not to finish a fight but to sever a chain. If the abyss demands sacrifice, who pays the price next? The question gnaws.